And a prison fire in Iran has killed at least 8 people. The facility is known for holding political prisoners.
Smoke billowed over Tehran's infamous Evin Prison after flames ripped through the facility over the weekend. Anti-government protesters marched to the prison in the aftermath of the fire, and there are conflicting narratives over how the fire began. Iran's government said it started during a fight between inmates, but critics suspect it's tied actually to the nationwide anti-government protests.
To get more clarity on this and much more, joining us now is Eric Loeb. Eric is an associate professor of politics and international relations at FIU, Florida International University, with a focus on Iran. Welcome, and let's just get right to it. This fire, from what I've read, started in an area that is not where the political prisoners are held, but there is some belief that it is connected to the protests. What are you thinking?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, even the point about the fire being in wards where there were financial or criminal prisoners versus political ones is still dubious. Or the fact that perhaps there were criminal prisoners that were directly impacted or that may have been involved in starting the fire, but that eventually they were political prisoners that were impacted in some ways. What we know is that there's been at least 8 people that have been killed, 61 injured, about a dozen or so rushed to the hospital in critical condition. And questions remain in big part because it's very difficult for scholars, analysts, observers to get accurate information out of Iran, given that they've shut down the internet and social media or made it difficult to access, that we have differing narratives about these events between the official sources and non-official sources in terms of what caused this. The official sources saying that it was the prisoners that did this internally, setting fire to a sewing workshop and a clothing warehouse within the prison, and others saying that the fire may have started by external actors who were able to infiltrate the prison and hit it with Molotov cocktails or some other forms of explosives. Now, of course, the official narrative wants to make it seem that this was an internal issue, that they have it under control, and that this is not linked to the protests, when in fact the truth may be different and may show that the regime or the state doesn't have as much control as it may say it has.
Professor, Iran is a big place, right? Twice the size of Texas. And so it's hard to get a sense watching this all unfold on television of how widespread these protests are and how they compare to other moments of uprisings in the country. Some have compared it to the revolution in the late 1970s. From where you're sitting with a lot more expertise than us, how are those two events the same? How are they different?
Well, these events are certainly the same in that if we look at the late 70s and today, these protests are certainly widespread, starting off in the Kurdish areas of the country, but spreading through 80 to 100 cities now and having sustainability. We're now seeing them into their 5th week and spanning across different demographics, different ethnicities, different classes, geographies, etc. The difference is between the late 70s is we won't know in terms of who really the leaders are and what this means if there can be. And there's a lot of skepticism that this could lead to the downfall of the regime unless there's serious defections in the military. And there's conflicting reports about that right now. But we don't really know who the leaders are, right? And who would be able to step in and take power and represent these protesters. Back in the late 70s, of course, you had Ayatollah Khomeini, and you had also very visible leaders in different parties, movements, and militias that signaled that there was an alternative to what the regime was back then. Today, that's a real open question.
Well, I mean, in a lot of protest movements, a leadership-less movement might be more effective or impactful, one that is really done by the people. And how people communicate, obviously now versus back in the 70s, is through the internet. I understand that that is the way that the government's trying to exert that control, that they're tightening access and restrictions to the internet. But is it too late for that, or is that enough for the regime to maintain control?
Well, it's a part of their strategy, and we've seen them use it before. But again, it's a game of cat and mouse where we have activists who have been able to circumvent these restrictions that are put on the internet and social media by filters that they have to do that, and even by countries like the United States and others that are working with technology companies to, number one, give these activists greater access to the internet and to social media, and then secondly, to shut down their accounts the minutes that the moments that they're apprehended, so that the authorities don't have the evidence that they could use against them in courts and in prisons. So those are the two ways that technology companies and governments are working behind the scenes to try to empower activists with these technologies. But really, at the end of the day, and as I mentioned earlier, it's going to come down, the center of gravity is going to come down to what happens with the military and with the security forces. If you start to see defections and you start to see officers and soldiers starting to put their guns down or walk with the protesters or refuse to fire on them, which again is some of them, specifically the Revolutionary Guard, has a lot of power and wealth to lose if there was regime change. So there's a lot of skepticism that would happen, but that would really be the factor that would tilt the scales or tilt the balance in favor of the protesters and activists.
Professor, the president of Iran took a look in the mirror and had a choice: blame himself for the chaos in the country or blame the U.S., and lo and behold, he blamed the U.S. How should that be interpreted?
Well, it's very predictable when we see these protests, and I've repeatedly mentioned this, and other scholars and analysts have too. It's predictable behavior by the regime or by the state when we see these protests erupt in 2009, 2017, 2019, and today. This is really their default narrative, discourse, rhetoric is to blame the outside enemy, the United States, and its allies and partners in the region and even around the globe that are fomenting and facilitating these protests. And it's a means to really delegitimize the protesters and to basically insinuate that their grievances and their claims have no legitimacy, and that is really the work of a foreign conspiracy.
All right, Professor Eric Loeb, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.